The AIM-9B is a well-known missile. Well known for being bad. It's nowhere near the worst, but due to it being on so many planes, and also being in every single tech tree except Great Britain, it's gained quite a reputation. However, if you're a Britain enjoyer, you won't be left out, as you guys have arguably the actual worst missile in the game. But we aren't talking about that. Now here's the obligatory like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the video. Firstly, who am I and why am I making this video? Skip to the timestamp on screen if you don't want to hear me rant. I am Gux. Previously, after reaching rank 6, I saw many people complaining about how terrible the AIM-9B was, and kind of experienced this firsthand. I then made a video titled The AIM-9B is All You Need, a parody of Spookston's The M3 is All You Need. It featured the same music but with AIM-9B kills instead. However, that video was really just a kill montage, and didn't really show anything informative about the actual missile, so this is that guide. The AIM-9B is a rear aspect missile, meaning you should use it when behind an enemy. However, there's one front aspect use case, which we'll talk about later. In order to fire the AIM-9B, I believe the default keybind is Ctrl-Alt, but if that doesn't work, open the keybinds option when pressing the escape key and search fire missile or IR missile or something. Doing this opens the little lock indicator, a flashing white circle. Your goal is to put the enemy inside that circle. Once the circle stops flashing, turns red, and the missile makes a screeching noise, you've gotten a lock. In order to fire the missile, press Alt-Control again, but don't actually fire as soon as you get a lock. In conclusion, find your keybind for IR missiles and put the enemy in the red circle. As we previously discussed, the AIM-9B isn't the best. It only pulls a maximum of 10 Gs and doesn't have the greatest range. Even though you get a lock doesn't mean you should fire. The most obvious reason is range. The AIM-9B's seeker can lock targets from around 2.5 kilometers away. Meanwhile, at sea level, I find the 9B's effective range to be 1 to 1.2 kilometers, assuming the enemy flies completely straight. The second reason you shouldn't launch immediately is the state of the enemy. What I mean by this is the AIM-9B doesn't like to hit turning targets. It'll handle very slight turns, but if they pull their elevator all the way, they'll be able to make the missile lose lock. So the best targets are the people chasing others, who are going to be focused on their target, not paying attention to your missile, and likely won't flare or evade your missile. Lastly, if the target is paying attention. This seems kind of obvious, but if you're actively chasing somebody who knows you are there, if you launch a missile at them, they will either flare or go into evasive maneuvers. Once again, the best targets are people chasing others. I also want to mention bombers. Bombers usually don't have flares and are big targets that fly straight. Basically, free kills for missiles as long as you're in range. I'm also going to show you a couple of examples where I lock the target and I'm considering firing the missiles, and you're going to have to guess if you should fire or not. In conclusion, find people either flying straight, not paying attention to you, or bombers and make sure they're within range. The AIM-9B can be used to make people turn. Simple as that. If you launch a missile at somebody without flares, they have to turn to evade. Turning bleeds speed, simple as that. This allows you to catch up and get a gun kill. Now, in the intro, I talked about a secret use for the AIM-9B, which is to shoot down missiles in a head-on. Despite being a rear aspect missile, the 9B can lock onto missiles from the front aspect. This is useful on planes without countermeasures, such as the F-101A and C variants, which are at 9.3. Check out my video on that. At this BR, you can start seeing AIM-9Ls and also the R3s. In conclusion, 9Bs make people turn, and 9Bs can shoot down front aspect missiles. First, like, comment, subscribe for algorithm food, and what am I supposed to say here? Leave the video now.